Hello everyone, you have come to Tata Comic Preview channel. This is an art collage novel video. I made this series so you guys can experience the story faster. The video will focus on the character's psychology, the images are for illustration purposes only. Ding Ling also thought of this, so she asked carefully, young Master Yun, where did you get that profound level weapon? Could it be Noah's ship? She made a bold guess. Yunxiao shook his head with a wry smile and said, you wouldn't believe me even if I told you. I found it in the warehouse of the Li family of Tianshui. Ding Ling was stunned. This was too good of a luck. He could find a super-grade mystic weapon in a random warehouse. Yunxiao frowned and said, this is troublesome. So it's such an important matter. If I get involved, I'm likely to be crushed to death. He smacked his forehead and said in distress, I'm really too smart for my own good. If I had known this would happen, I wouldn't have exposed Hong Yi's identity. Now that Hong Yi's identity has been exposed to me, if I don't cooperate with them, I'm afraid the Empyrean 1 Pavilion will not let me go. If you piss me off, Empyrean 1 Pavilion and 4 Extreme Sect will be annihilated together. He said coldly. Ding Ling was shocked and frightened. She had also heard of Gu Feiyong's character. Back then, he had massacred one of the 7 major forces, the Red Moon City, and countless masters had been killed or injured. This caused the strength of the entire Red Moon City to fall to the bottom of the 7 major forces. As for the other sects, such as Baiming Xuanzong and Shinshao Palace, he had also gone through them alone. He was the kind of person who would kill one person every 10 steps and not leave a trace for 1,000 miles. Don't throw a tantrum. With your current strength, you can't even get rid of Empyrean 1 Pavilion and 4 extreme sects branches in the Gentle Song Forest, let alone them. Let's think about how to deal with this. Ding Ling pouted and said angrily. Yunxiao's eyes flickered as he suddenly laughed and said, I've thought it through. I'll follow the Empyrean 1 Pavilion's wishes and deal with the 4 extreme sect. What? Ding Ling was shocked. You'll get into big trouble. Yunxiao's face showed a touch of indifference as he said, they won't let me go after killing Tang Yuan. Besides, I'm also very interested in seeing what Noah's ship looks like. Ding Ling's face turned pale, and she said with difficulty, young Master Yun, do you know what you're doing? With your previous strength, it wouldn't be a problem, but now, once Noah's ship appears, not only the business union, but the whole world will be shocked. If you get caught up in it, you'll just be cannon fodder. Humph. Yunxiao snorted. Even if they are cannon fodder, a few people will be killed. His eyes lit up as he said, Noah's ship has become a supreme-grade mystic artifact, and its refining method has always been the ultimate pursuit of all alchemists. I must get my hands on it, dismantle it, and figure out its refining method. Ding Ling's mouth was wide open, and she was completely stunned. They wanted to snatch Noah's ship to improve their strength and dominate a region. And he actually wanted to take it apart and study the refining method, Swan and I. The next day, the entire west side of the city began to become quiet. There was no usual hustle and bustle, and the road seemed a little cold and quiet, as if a storm was coming. The meeting was held in an open-air square in the west of the city. Due to the large number of people, the rookie mercenary group had come in early to maintain order. A large round table was set up in the center of the square, and many seats were scattered around it. From time to time, there would be people from mercenary groups entering. Only the leaders were allowed to sit, but they didn't dare to sit at the round table. Instead, they sat on the small chairs at the side. To everyone's horror, there were many people kneeling around the square. They were the members of the Storm Mercenary Group, led by Zhao Yu. They were all kneeling on the ground, their fates unknown. Zhao Yu's hair was disheveled and he looked dazed. His white clothes were dirty and gave off a foul smell. He was a 6-star martial emperor, and he could be considered an expert anywhere. To actually receive such humiliation, it made one's heart turn cold. However, it also had an extremely strong intimidating effect. The heroes' assembly this time would not be simple. When the people from the Rainstorm Mercenary Group arrived, it would probably be another fierce battle. When immortals fight, mortals suffer. The leaders of these various mercenary groups quickly pondered in their hearts, thinking of an escape route later. Under everyone's drooling eyes, Hong Yi walked up with her chest puffed up. She walked straight to the round table and sat down. From time to time, she would make eyes at the various regiment commanders, making flirtatious gestures and sending them off. The entire venue was filled with spring. Isn't this Brother Zhao Yu? A man in gray walked in, surrounded by a crowd. When he saw the people kneeling in front of the venue, he was shocked and went forward to help Zhao Yu up, but the smile on his face did not fade. He said, "Brother Zhao Yu, you're being too serious. We've known each other for many years. Although we have a deep relationship, there's no need to greet us with such a big ceremony." "Brother Black Cloud," Zhou Xiang called out from a distance. He stepped forward to pull the dark clouds away and said with a smile, "Brother Zhao Yu is now our rookie mercenary group's welcoming handsome man. The captain said that kneeling to welcome guests is a form of etiquette, a form of respect for the guests. It's only right, it's only right." I see, I see. Dark Cloud laughed a few times, but his laughter sounded very dry. His eyes were filled with fear, a typical fake smile. He was the person in charge of the skeleton mercenary group in the west of the city. He had thought that there would be a big fight, but he had received orders from the higher-ups early in the morning to bide his time and let the rookie mercenary group cause trouble. He naturally sat down at the round table. Hong Yi quickly leaned over, and the two of them teased each other as if there was no one else around. Black Cloud thought that since he didn't have to do anything, it wouldn't be a bad idea to go back after some flirting. The two of them added a touch of spring to the oppressive atmosphere of the venue. The third person to sit at the large round table was a hunchbacked old man. He looked as if he would be blown away by the wind at any moment, the kind that would enter the coffin in the next second. With the help of a servant, he also sat at the round table. There was no nameplate on the round table, nor was there any restriction on the qualifications. It just sat there. However, those without a certain level of strength and confidence would not dare to sit on it. There were already many people sitting on the chairs around them, but there were still 3 lonely people in the center. Cough, cough, Chao Luo, why are you here? Isn't this a mercenary group meeting? What's an old profiteer like you going to participate in? Chao Luo's thin body turned around and he said hoarsely, "That's right. The rookie mercenary group's people surrounded our 10,000 treasures tower's front door for a day, saying that if I don't come, their people won't leave. How can this business continue?" Dark Cloud frowned and was extremely puzzled. The newbie mercenary group was going to start a war with all the other forces. They even dared to offend the myriad treasure tower? What was going on? Could it be that young Emperor Hao Lian had advanced to the martial supreme realm? Even if he had succeeded, he shouldn't have been so reckless. Humph, so you're also like this. I thought only my money chamber of commerce would have such treatment. A man had appeared out of thin air beside the round table, and a copper ingot was staring at the table. He said with an unfriendly expression, "I heard that the newbie mercenary group has become so arrogant after changing their captain. Could the captain be a martial sovereign of the 9th heaven? Jingnan, you're here too? I can understand why Chao Luo came over. After all, he's an old man and I can't beat him. You're a man, and a martial emperor at that. How could you be threatened?" Hong Yi spat out a mouthful of orchids and smiled. "No one's better than you in bed. Why are you a good-for-nothing now?" "Pa." The copper ingot in Jingnan's hand slammed directly into the table, his face alternating between red and white as he angrily said, "Hong Yi, shut your stinky mouth. Do you believe that I won't tear you apart right now?" Yi was still laughing non-stop and said disdainfully, "If you have the ability, go and find a man to fight with. He only knows how to bully a woman like me. He bullies me in bed and even bullies me outside the bed. What kind of ability is that?" "You." Jingnan was so angry that his face turned red. He finally understood that he couldn't argue with a woman. If he continued, he was afraid that some more unpleasant words would come out. The other party was a shameless B***TCH, but he was the branch president of the Money Chamber of Commerce, who had a bright future. After thinking it through, he suppressed the anger in his heart and slowly sat down. Cough. Cough. Qiao Luo coughed and laughed, like a withered branch swaying in the wind, ready to break at any moment. He teased, Jingnan, Yi is complimenting you. That's right. President Jingnan, when are we brothers going to have an exchange? An unfamiliar voice rang out in the public square. A purple light flashed down, and a man with upside-down hair and large earrings appeared beside Jingnan, sitting down. It was the person in charge of the 4 extreme sex branch, Song Xiong. Humph. Dark Cloud snorted. Is this a gathering of the mercenaries or a meeting of the merchant union? Who is this? It seemed that he was very impatient. Is it because the welcoming men I prepared didn't serve everyone well and don't suit your appetite? Yunxiao's voice suddenly rang out in the square. Everyone's eyes looked to the side of the square and immediately made way for him. They all wanted to see what the new captain of the rookie mercenary group, who had caused an uproar these few days, looked like. With one look, everyone was stunned. It was actually a 16 or 17-year-old child. Although he had heard about it, he was still shocked when he saw it. Bin Jia, who was standing next to Yun Xiao, had a bitter look on his face. He had barely escaped from the Devil's Den and had even gone out to celebrate, but the next day, he had received an order from Hai Beifei and was transferred here. There was also Ding Ling and a woman who looked like a young woman. The two of them were holding hands and seemed to have a good conversation. The young woman was the person in charge of the branch of the Empyrean One Pavilion, Shen Li. When Dark Cloud saw Yun Xiao staring at him, he was startled for no reason, and a chill rushed into his body. He was shocked. He was a martial emperor, so how could he be frightened by a martial king? Besides, the meaning of Yun Xiao's words was also very obvious. He had specifically mentioned the beautiful man to let people know that if they were not convinced, they could kneel down and greet the guests. He thought of the order from above and the cold gazes that were staring at him from all directions. He couldn't help but feel scared. He had come alone this time, and he was obviously surrounded by the rookie mercenary group. Although he was a martial emperor, he still lowered his proud head and did not dare to look Yun Xiao in the eye. When Dark Cloud lowered his head, everyone's hearts trembled. The reason why there was no order in the west of the city was because of the mutual restraint between the 3 major mercenary groups, which gave them a large living space. If one of the mercenary groups became stronger and completely suppressed the other 2, it was something that none of the mercenary groups wanted to see. However, the leaders of the other 2 mercenary groups in the city's west, one of them had lowered his noble head, while the other was kneeling in the square to welcome the guests. It was as if everyone was seeing a future that they were extremely unwilling to see. Yun Xiao looked at the center of the square and saw that 3 more men had appeared at the round table. Each of them was silent, and there was a very strong sense of viciousness around them. Only those who had been killing on the edge of life and death for a long time could have such a soul-shaking aura. The atmosphere in the square was very heavy, but Yun Xiao looked relaxed under the eyes of thousands of people. He walked straight to the round table and sat down, almost humming a song. Qiao Luo and Jingnan, who was beside her, exchanged a look and saw the surprise in each other's eyes. In such a harsh environment, which mercenary group leader wouldn't be sweating? Even veterans like them, as well as the elders of the Chamber of Commerce who weren't very close to him, felt extremely depressed and uncomfortable. However, this 16 or 17-year-old child was actually able to walk through it so easily, as if no one was there. This kind of indifference and unaffected mind was definitely not only related to cultivation. He must have been in a high position for a long time to produce such a temperament. For a time, everyone was guessing the identity of this new brigade leader. Bin Jia, Zhou Xiang, Shen Li, and Ding Ling also sat down on both sides, filling up the large round table as if they had already calculated the number of people. A sharp light flashed in Qiao Luo's cloudy eyes, and he looked at Ding Ling. He said in surprise, could this little girl be the famous Miss Ding Ling? Several people in the merchant union fixed their eyes on Ding Ling with surprise and contemplation on their faces. They didn't understand why a big shot of Tianyuan Trading Company would appear here. Although Tianyuan Trading Company had declined, its reputation was still there. In terms of status, Ding Ling was much better than them. Shenli seemed to be very kind. She held Ding Ling's hand and smiled at everyone. Little sister Ling is a good friend of Captain Cloud Sky, and she's only here to play. So you're just here to play? Xiao Luo said lazily, as if she had suddenly realized something. He especially emphasized the word purely. Although Ding Ling's status was very high, the core members of the four alliances didn't care about the other chambers of commerce at all. The rest of the people also had looks of disbelief and contempt on their faces, but they were also vigilant. Even Shenli, who had a kind smile on her face, had a cold glint in her eyes. Song Xiong chuckled in a strange voice. The 2 meetings of the Merchant Union are about to begin. Why is Miss Ling in the mood to travel instead of cultivating in seclusion? Before Ding Ling could speak, Yunxiao frowned and said, "What does this have to do with you? You're just a branch manager, and to put it bluntly, you're also a piece of trash. Why do you care about an event that high-level people like the 2 associations of the Merchant Union participate in?" Song Xiong was stunned. He was just casually speaking, how could he be retorted by the other party? Even the rest of the people looked at each other, not understanding why Yunxiao had lost his temper. Yunxiao continued leisurely, "What? Are you not convinced that you are a piece of trash, and you want to get into the top management? Is it Tang Dingtian who's supporting you, or are you trying to overthrow the core power of the Four Extremes sect? You're so silly." Song Xiong jumped up from his chair in shock and said angrily, "Don't talk nonsense. Be careful of trouble coming from your mouth." The smile on Shenli's face did not fade, as if nothing had happened. Hong Yi, on the other hand, gently revealed a charming smile. The others were all frowning, somewhat unsure of the direction of the wind. Yunxiao's idea was simple. Since he had decided to destroy the Four Extremes sect, he would just go straight to the point. In this kind of thing, it was still a competition of fist size. Schemes, tricks, nonsense, and strategies were all small tricks. Therefore, a cold expression appeared on his face as he said in a cold voice, "Trouble comes from the mouth? I really want to see how a piece of trash like you can make me get into trouble. It's good to move around before the meeting." Yunxiao stood up from his chair. His bones crackled under the circulation of his primordial qi, and his aura gradually dispersed. He was really going to fight. The surrounding people were all stunned. What was this kid thinking? He hadn't even finished his business and he had already offended the Four Extremes sect. Song Xiong's expression changed drastically. The Four Extremes sect was an extremely powerful existence in the entire Heavenly Martial continent. The rookie mercenary group was the dominator of the terrain in the light singing forest, but in the Heavenly Martial Arts realm, they were nothing. He couldn't understand how he had become a target. Could it be that the other party was really a lunatic, the kind that would deal with whoever he didn't like? He wouldn't believe this even if he was beaten to death. If he was really such a reckless lunatic, how could he have become the leader of Team 8? Could it be that they are targeting our Four Extremes sect? When he thought of this, his heart trembled. He glanced at Shenli, who was standing beside Ding Ling. Shenli was still calm, but she took out a bronze mirror and started to touch up her makeup. Suppressing the anger in his heart, Song Xiong's killing intent dissipated and he said, "Captain Yunxiao, please calm down. I was rash just now. Don't delay the gathering of the mercenaries because of me." Whoosh. This time, a large number of them fainted, not understanding why Song Xiong had given in. This wasn't usually the case, so why did it seem like everyone had changed today? Yunxiao frowned. He had also caught Song Xiong's gaze when he glanced at Shenli. It seemed that he had begun to suspect something and had some concerns. It seemed that it was very likely that Tang Jia was in the Light Song woodland, which made him hold back his anger. However, he still sneered in his heart. "Since I've made up my mind to deal with you guys, I'll break your shell even if it's a ninja turtle." He revealed an overbearing expression and snorted coldly, "Your father wants to flatten you with your current appearance. This table is very crowded, and there are still many seats beside it. I'll have to trouble you to move a little so that you don't block my view." Song Xiong trembled with anger as he stared at Yunxiao. Then, without saying a word, he stood up and found a seat next to him. Whoosh. This caused everyone's hearts to tremble even more. Even though the Four Extremes sect was only a merchant association, it had a high status in the Light Song Forest and had many experts. Usually, the leaders of the three mercenary groups would be very polite to them, but now, they were being scolded by a young man, and they even obediently moved their seats. This time, completely destroyed his three views. Everyone's heart turned cold. Who was this young man? Yunxiao's heart jolted. It seemed that the Ninja Turtle had decided to endure it to the end. He frowned and said, I'll let you off for today, Ninja Turtle. Don't let me see you in the Gentle Song Forest again, or I'll beat you up every time I see you. Song Xiong looked at the surprised and disdainful gazes around him and was so angry that blood rushed to his head. He was about to go berserk. However, when he thought of the current situation, he dug his fingernails into his flesh, and his fists were covered in blood, but he still did not say a word. Song Xiong's behavior, as well as Dark Cloud's attitude in the beginning, made the hearts of the surrounding mercenary group leaders sink. There must have been information that they had not been able to obtain. This information had forced the skeleton mercenaries and the Four Extremes sect to give in to this young man. This thought not only spread in the minds of the major mercenary groups, but even Xiao Luo and Jingnan were shocked and found it extremely difficult to understand. It was only then that Yunxiao let Song Xiong go for the time being. He looked around and leaned lazily on the chair as he said, Zhou Xiang, please register the names of these mercenary groups that have come. Those who didn't come, don't need to appear in the city's west anymore. Voila. There was another uproar in the surroundings. Was this a death sentence for the other mercenary groups? Did he really think he was the king of the forest, the king of mercenaries? However, most of them were secretly happy. Although they didn't know how much weight these words carried, at least those who didn't come would definitely not have a good time. They were all glad that they came. Yunxiao continued, I've gathered everyone here this time because the west of the city is too chaotic. I've just been appointed as the captain of the 8th team, and I don't like this place. That's why I called everyone here to discuss and redistribute the benefits, then we'll come up with a rule together. The main topic was finally here. Everyone held their breath and looked at him quietly. Dark Cloud could not help but ask, redistribute the benefits? Captain Cloud Sky's words are really simple.